Yo.
Hello. All right.
Yikes.
Thank you for having us. We are Cabildo. And on the
Yo.
100th day of the death of Emiliano Zapata, which is today, by the way, we're gonna play a song. We're gonna start with a song called Mi País, My Country, and it's based on Mexican. Hello. Hello. Can I have the mic? All right, it's back. Thank you. Nada por cambiar, se destronó ante un gobierno inapto que no cuida su nación y desató una ola de violencia, prepotencia y corrupción. Corruptos y tanta inseguridad, el pueblo obligado está a formar autodefensa con coraje y dignidad, ni en quien confiar, hasta el mismo polizonte ya te quiere secuestrar. Libre será, aquí no ha pasado nada, por Dios qué pena me da si Dear Mexico, so far away from God and so close to the United States.
Wow. Geez, good morning. Wow. Okay, I have to be honest. First, I better say my name. I'm Reverend Christopher Rowe. I use he, him pronouns, and I have the pleasure of serving as the acting senior minister here at Fountain Street Church. Now, what I really wanted to say, I have been so anxious and excited and concerned and full of consternation and excitement about this morning because I knew we had this wonderful ensemble Cabildo with us. I knew we had David Fair from Temple Emmanuel with us, a friend and colleague, and their cantor. I also know we had an amazing selection of works from the choir. I knew that we had a theme on, oh my gosh, Palm Sunday, Passion Sunday, and of course Passover. And I just was awake for days thinking, there is no way this is going to work. But if it's going to work, it's going to work here at Fountain Street Church, right? This is a community with all kinds of orientations and ways of being. This is a community where no matter who you are, no matter where you are on your faith journey, or maybe you're just taking a pause or a beat from that entirely, whether you believe in one God, many gods, or no gods at all, or you don't know what you believe, no matter who you're loved by or who you loved, whether you are joining us in this magnificent cathedral of love where the sun pours in and warms our spirits, or you are joining us from the comfort of your home or your car or at work later this week or months from now when you find us, each and every one of you who is here today, no matter how big your role is in this service or how small you feel in this temple, committed to peace and peacemaking, each of you belong here in a complicated world where love and justice and inclusion and peace are the shared works of this 153-year ministry's work. So thank you for being here. As you have noticed, we have a full and enriching service today, not only because of our music or our liturgy, but also because we come together in a time that is full of sorrow, full of joy, full of hope, full of fear, full of loss in this congregation, loss in our city, loss in our world, and full of deep faith that together it can be better. So thank you for being here this morning as we draw our hearts together for worship. This morning's call to worship serves two purposes. It is offered to you from the poet Maya Angelou, and it will be a familiar poem for many of you, and I have selected it in celebration of the historic confirmation of Ketanji Brown Jackson to the Supreme Court. And that's right. And she referenced this poem in her speech on Friday. And we also offer it up to the suffering of many in our community, including the Black community, including in Grand Rapids, where suffering and oppression continue. So as we pull our hearts together for this hour of worship on this Palm, Passion, Passover Sunday, hear these words as we enter into this hour together. You may write me down in history with your bitter, twisted lies. You may trod me in the very dirt, but still, like dust I rise. Does my sassiness upset you? Why are you beset with gloom? 'Cause I walk like I've got oil wells pumping in my living room? Just like moons and just like suns, with certainty and tides, just like hopes springing high, still I rise. Did you want to see me broken, bowed head and lowered eyes, shoulders falling down like teardrops weakened by my soulful cries? Does my haughtiness offend you? Don't you take it awful hard, 'cause I laugh like I've got gold mines digging in my own backyard? You may shoot me with your words, you may cut me with your eyes, you may kill me with your hatefulness, but still like air, I rise. Does my sexiness upset you? Does it come as a surprise that I dance like I've got diamonds at the meeting of my thighs? Out of the huts of history shame I rise, up from the past that's rooted in pain I rise. I'm a black ocean leaping and wide, welling and swelling, I bear in the tide. Leaving behind nights of terror and fear, I rise. Into a daybreak that's wondrously clear, I rise. Bringing the gifts that my ancestors gave, I am the dream and the hope of the slave. I rise. I rise. I rise. Welcome to worship. The ancient witness for all of us this morning comes to us from Psalm 97 as a translation from Mishkan Tefillah, a Reform Siddur. Join together as we hear the ancient spirit in our contemporary beings. Adonai is sovereign. Let the earth exult, the many islands rejoice. Dense clouds are around God. Righteousness and justice are the base of God's throne. O you who love Adonai, hate evil. God guards the lives of God's loyal ones, saving them from the land of the wicked. Light is sown for the righteous, radiance for the upright. O you righteous, rejoice in Adonai and acclaim God's holy name. Our contemporary witness this morning comes to us from Before I Leave the Stage by Alice Walker. Hear what the contemporary spirit is saying to our collective spirit this morning. Before I leave the stage, I will sing the only song I was meant to truly sing. It is the song of I Am. Yes, I am me and you. We are. I love us with every drop of our blood, every atom of our cells, our waving particles, undaunted flags of our being, neither here nor there.
All right. So at the end of the 90s, which was the peak of the NAFTA migration from Mexico, Julio arrived to this country, and I arrived to this country, and we made all these fine folks many years ago. And thank you, Margie, for letting me know to take my mask off. And he wrote a song a few years ago called I'm Not From Here. And in that song, he tells the story of a promise that he made to his mom coming here, to the U.S. and saying, "I'll be right back." And it was the same lie that I told my mom when I came here, which is, it'll be 2 years and we'll be back. And it's been, 24 years later, and we're still here. So, and in the middle of the song, there is a little, we lower our volume, and there is a voice that Julio sings, and that's the voice of his mother saying, "We miss you, and we would like to hear your voice once in a while. Why are you not calling?" Which is the same things that my mom tells me. And in fact, when my mom heard the song, she thought that I had written it. Yeah, but I disappointed her one more time. All right, so Yo No Soy.
Yo no soy de aquí, me trajeron los rumores, enterados tras el tiempo, por viejas generaciones. Si te vas ya no regresas, me dijeron por aquí. Venerás esos valores que te formaron. Y si nos quedamos enredados en el tiempo, fue porque nos descuidamos y no pudimos volver. Y si nos quedamos enredados por el destino olvidados, hoy solo quedan las ganas de volver. Yo no soy de aquí, me trajeron los fervores, la adolescencia cierta, la seducción del norte. Me dijeron no hay riqueza si no hay con quien compartir. Si vuelves ya no encuentras lo que has dejado. Y si nos quedamos enredados en el tiempo, fue porque nos descuidamos y no pudimos volver. Y nos quedamos enredados por el destino olvidados, hoy solo quedan las ganas de volver. Cuando regresas, ya no has llamado. ¿Por qué no piensas regresar? Hoy te extrañamos. ¿Por qué no vuelves? Queremos verte. Aquí no es lo mismo si no estás, si nos quedamos enredados en el tiempo, fue porque nos descuidamos y no pudimos volver. Si nos quedamos enredados por el destino olvidados, hoy solo
Reverend Christopher told me to take a few huge breaths before I do it, so that is what I'm doing. Can you all please breathe with me so I feel a little bit better? All right, let's close our lips. Breathe in through your nose. Here we go. That felt really good. Well, hi, everyone. Hi. My name is David Fair. I am the cantor at Temple Emmanuel and Congregation Ahavas Israel. So Temple Emmanuel is across from Aquinas College, and Ahavas Israel is on Michigan. And it is an honor to be with you all this morning. So I'm Jewish, and I am really excited to be in a space with people who are from other faith traditions. And it's such an honor and it's so exciting. And before I forget, I want to invite you all to come visit us at either Temple Emmanuel or Ahavas Israel. And we would be so welcoming and friendly toward you because it's really exciting to welcome the stranger. So, this Friday, anybody know what holiday is coming up? It's Passover! Yes, it's Passover! In Hebrew, we say it's Pesach. And on Passover, we tell the story of how the Hebrew people were enslaved in ancient Egypt. They were foreigners in Egypt. They came from Canaan, but they had to come to Egypt because there was a famine in the land of Canaan. So they were refugees, right? So I'll spare you all the story of Moses and the basket and let my people go and all of that. Many of you are very familiar with that story. But what I want to focus on is the commandments that God gave forth as a result of the Hebrews being enslaved in ancient Egypt. Particularly those commandments that surround the concept of the treatment of the ger. Ger means the stranger. So I am clergy at my synagogue, so therefore I'm attached to a lot of emails that go around about how the synagogue is run. And I got attached onto an email about security. And I was very disturbed at what I was reading by four senior members of the community. They wanted to revise our security policy because a homeless man had been attending our services. Statements were made in this email chain such as, and I quote, "I am not personally comfortable with him being in the building." And Temple is not a homeless shelter or a soup kitchen. There are resources for people who need those things. Actually, we do have a food bank at the temple, but this guy doesn't care about reality and things that are actually happening. So I had to have an intense conversation with these leaders of my community. And I would love to sit here and tell you all, they're just really old people. No, they weren't old. Nobody was past, I almost put my foot in my mouth there. Let's just say no one was what you would call an old person. They were, middle-aged in the prime of their lives. So all of that, they're from a different generation stuff. I never buy into that anyway. When someone says, oh, they're from a different generation, they have a right to be racist. They're from a different generation, they have a right to be sexist. I never understand that. It's like they got to a certain age, and then they were abducted, and they went to Mars, and then they were placed back here after 1962, and now it's 2022, and they're like, oh, I don't know how things are. No, they were here. They were actually here during all of the change, right? They were in the culture. They were watching TV. They were reading newspapers. They just chose
to not evolve. It's a choice. So what I told these leaders of my community is that I'm very disturbed because you all claim to be compassionate and loving. However, this man is being dehumanized. This man, he's not a problem. He's a human being. He has hopes, dreams, feelings, parents. He's a child of God. I understand that a homeless person makes people feel nervous. And to be honest, yes, I was a little nervous when I saw him for the first time. I'm not going to act like I was not. Like, I have feelings too when I see someone like that. But you know what I did as opposed to just whispering and turning away? I walked up to this man and I said, "Hi, I'm Cantor Fair. What's your name?" And he told me his name, and we had a conversation. And I learned that he has a really interesting history with Judaism. He's not Jewish, but he wanted to be there. But most of all, I spoke to him. I got to know him. I got to see his humanity. So he's appeared now at the temple and at a Havis dozens and dozens of times. Like, he's been going consistently for like 5 or 6 months now. Yet those leaders of my community, they come to our worship services so rarely. I mean, maybe once every couple of months. So I'm not shocked that they did not recognize him. So when he comes to services, he sits and he prays and he doesn't bother anyone. I had to, and our woman who is the head of our food bank, she's gotten to know him. So he is known. He's a person who is no longer a stranger. He is no longer the ger. He is now one amongst us, one of our own. He does belong here. You don't have to be a member of a religious body to belong in that religious body. You could just, how about this? You could just be a human. You could just be a human being who's welcomed in a religious space. So I do a lot of anti-racism work, and I love to say that, the people that are my specialty people, the people that I specialize in working with, I love the NPR liberals. That is the group I specialize in. So if you're like a progressive, BLM, feminist, yeah, I feel you. I'm one of those people. We are the most problematic people. We are the worst. And I'll tell you why. Because when I have to speak with an avowed racist, and I'm trying to tell that person the things that you are saying and doing are very problematic, it isn't that they're listening to me, but I can actually have a conversation. They deliberately do things that they believe are right. And I can argue with them about that's actually not right. But you try to tell some gay, feminist, BLM person like myself, actually the things that you are doing is actually rather problematic, and it's contributing toward racism and it's homophobic. Oh my God. They will be deeply, horribly offended because they believe that what they are doing is the right thing. They know I'm not a racist. There's a man who sits next to me in a cubicle and he's black, and I don't hate him, so I can't be a racist. In fact, my brother married a black woman, so I can't be a racist. I say hello to black people on the street. I can't be a racist. So Robin DiAngelo, who's a wonderful, famous anti-racism educator, she calls this the inoculation effect. I am in proximity to somebody of color, so that has inoculated me against ever being racist. No, that is not a thing that happens. Believe it or not, you can be a white person who is married to a person of color, and you can still say things on occasion that are rather racially problematic. So I am the son of a proud black man and a proud white Jewish woman, and I identify as a black biracial person. And let me tell you, there are people in my life that are white people whom I love, whom I do feel are allies to me, and from time to time, they say things that are racially problematic. Now, this is what I want you to understand. Two truths can exist. This person can be compassionate, loving, kind, amazing, generous, a good human being. And this same person can also, from time to time, say things that are racially problematic and class problematic. Both of those can exist. And I think the problem is that when someone tells someone else, you know, what you just said is actually rather offensive, what they hear is, you're a bad person. You are a garbage human being. And I'm here to tell you that isn't what I just said. When I said, you know, what you're doing is racially problematic, I did not say you're a bad person. I said, what you're doing is racially problematic. You're a lovely, amazing human being, but I'm giving you some very useful feedback so that you can improve. And I think that's really hard for many white identified people to deal with. That it's not a personal attack against your very soul. It's just giving you some useful feedback. What happens is that I keep just talking off the cuff, and then I lose place in my sermon here. Okay, so I'm always on this tirade of telling people that it's not that it is okay. I was about to say it is okay to be racially problematic. That's not exactly what I'm trying to say here. It happens. From time to time, it happens that you will say and do something that is racially problematic. So I'll give you a few examples of times that this has happened to me. And here I am. I'm the BLM feminist, total Democrat, and I have done some really racially problematic things. I broke my collarbone. I was in the hospital room, and what I thought was the nurse came in to help me and talk to me. And I said, can I please speak with a doctor? And she said, I am the doctor. Because she was black. What? Oh my gosh, you're a black person and you're a doctor? I thought you were certainly lower management. Yeah, I was conditioned in the United States of America. I was conditioned to believe that. So I'm not surprised this happened to me. I was a school teacher for about 10 years, and I specialized in early childhood education. And not once did I ever question that the books that I was showing all of the children, all white children illustrations, never a picture of a black person or a person of color. It never occurred to me because I didn't care that much to actually realize how a child, when they only see pictures of white people, and their doctors are only white people, their parents' friends are only white people, how when they see a person of color, they think, oh my gosh, this person is very different than me. Very different. But what if this little white child grows up where his mom is great friends with several other women of color, and these women are over the house all the time, and they're just talking about hanging out, makeup, shopping, social justice. They're just hanging out. And that child gets to see that very often. And that child goes to the doctor, and that's a black person. And that child has teachers that are people of color. They will grow up seeing that, wow, people of color are authority figures who are smart, and they are people that I can learn things from. So when I was a teacher, that didn't even occur to me. I've been to Chinese restaurants, and the person who is my server has a thick accent, and I've gotten pretty annoyed. I've even gotten downright angry. And I don't think I was hiding my irritation as well as I should have been. What other things have I done? Sure. I worked at an organization for several years, and I think we had one employee in our organization of about 24 employees who was a person of color. It didn't even occur to me that I might go to my boss and say, I'm noticing that there aren't very many people of color on staff. Is there something we can do to recruit more professionals of color? It didn't even occur to me. I used to live in New York City, and the subway stations in the black neighborhoods literally smelled like urine. And then I would go to 64th Street, which is, uptown, and oh my God, they were pristine, beautiful. The PA systems were better because the white people lived there. So when I am aware of all of these things, but I do nothing, am I part of the solution? No. I'm actually part of the problem. Being Jewish, I'm very acutely aware of the Holocaust. Yom HaShoah, which is Holocaust Remembrance Day, that'll be next month. That's what the German citizens did. They saw horrible injustices happening to the Jewish people, and they did nothing. I'm not going to say that they were as awful as the Nazis were, but I think they contributed to the murder of 6 million people plus, because they were complicit. And I want to ask you all, as you sit here, I'm noticing that I don't see very many people of color. That's a reality, and that's all right for now. When the stranger walks into this space, you see, and I'm a stranger to you all. I do not know you all, so I can't speak to your behavior, but I have a few questions for you. When someone walks into this space and they look different than you, do you excitedly walk up to them and say, "Hi, welcome to Fountain Street Church. I'm Marla. Have I met you before? Oh, I haven't? Well, great. Have you seen the building? Let me introduce you to Reverend Christopher." That kind of obnoxious hospitality is amazing. You should see me on the rare occasion when a person of color walks into temple. I will beeline straight for that person, and I will just be that kind of obnoxious. I want them to know I'm excited to see you, because you can imagine, and I think it's probably the reason that most of you don't spend a lot of time on like Madison Avenue, Eastern, in the black parts of town, because you don't want to feel like a minority. That makes sense to me, of course. So imagine how they feel coming into this space. They need someone to come up to them and make them feel at home. How about you also say, "Why don't you sit next to me?" That would make me feel really, really welcomed. All right, don't know where I am on this whole sermon. I got so caught up. Okay, that makes sense. Okay, waiters, irritated with the accent. Okay. So everyone, that long list of ways that I told you that I have contributed to racism, here's the thing. If I'm doing it, I know you're doing it. I know this. But does that make you a bad person? No, honestly, it makes you an American because that is how we were raised. But just because that's how we were raised doesn't mean that we need to continue this pattern. So I am the director of our religious school as well as the cantor. And let me tell you, I have purchased so many children's books showing children of color in Jewish spaces. I make a big deal out of it. And I don't just read them the book and try to be sneaky. I actually bring attention. I say, look at this person's beautiful skin color. Isn't this beautiful? Sometimes people are not nice to people with this skin color. Is it okay to not be nice to people with a different skin color? No, it's not. So when a person like this walks into our building, are you going to turn away from them or are you going to be super nice to them? And the kids go, we're going to be super nice. So I'm really making efforts to actively change the way things are going. I mean, ask yourself, for instance, so Grand Rapids Public Schools, what are the bad schools? What are the schools in town that are not great? Why are they not great? Where are the bad neighborhoods? Why are they the bad neighborhoods? What are the good neighborhoods? What defines a good neighborhood? So I think y'all can answer these questions. You don't need me to. So let's get back to the Bible here. Somehow I'm supposed to be talking about the Bible here. So the Torah is the 5 books of Moses. The Torah mentions the idea of welcoming the stranger no less than 36 times. In fact, the Torah instructs us 36 times to care for the stranger far more than it commands us to observe the Sabbath or any other law. And the first time is in Genesis, when 3 angels appear to Abraham outside of the tent. And here's the thing, Abraham is super excited to see them. In fact, he's sitting outside of the tent in the heat, and he's like, oh my God, hello, welcome, come on in. Let me wash your feet. Let me refresh your heart. Why don't you recline under this tree? And he serves them tender and fine delicacies. So that's being hospitable. That is welcoming the stranger. Welcoming the stranger is not, well, I didn't give him a dirty look. Welcoming the stranger is not, I said good morning. No. I think a lot of people honestly feel like because they say hello to a black person, that has somehow made them this anti-racism warrior. Oh, honey, it is far more than that. In ancient Egypt, after the Hebrews were freed, God could see that just because... See, when I read things, I don't really feel them, so I'm just going to tell you. When God saw that the Hebrews were freed, God was starting to see traits in the people that weren't cute. God was starting to see, oh my gosh, look at them. They're starting to judge people who are not them. They're starting to forget that they were strangers in the land of Egypt. So God gave some extra commandments. So this is from Exodus 22. It says here, you shall not wrong a stranger or oppress him, for you were strangers in the land of Egypt. You shall not oppose a stranger, for you know the soul of the stranger, for you were strangers in the land of Egypt. The stranger who resides with you, this is my favorite, the stranger who resides with you shall be to you as one of your citizens. You shall love him as yourself, for you were strangers in the land of Egypt. Doesn't that just fire you up? So we see such excellent examples in the Bible of what welcoming the stranger looks like. The person who has a different skin color than you, it's the person who's in a different social class than you, the person who has a different religion than you. that person, their soul, is just as special and holy as yours. I think so often we look at someone who doesn't look like one of us and we forget that this person has a soul. That man who came to my temple, like, maybe he really loves horror movies. Maybe he loves chocolate chip mint ice cream. Maybe he loves cooked carrots, but he can't stand raw carrots. So what I'm doing right now is I'm humanizing him. I'm making him seem like a real person. Because it's so easy to look at somebody like that and just say that is a scummy person who I don't have to actually think of as a person. You know, I'm just imagining him being born and his mother looking at him and saying, I want the best for you in this world. And this is the person that you walk down the street and you don't make eye contact with because you say they're disgusting. And that person is a child of God. Okay, talked about the religious school. I was on this kick for like a few months when I lived in New York. I would pass the very same homeless people every single day, and I would start to bring food with me to give to them. And I remember one time I gave this man a quart of milk, and he said, "Oh, no thanks, I'm lactose intolerant." And my first inclination was, how ungrateful. He should accept anything I give him. But is that me seeing his humanity? No. I didn't see him as a person. I saw him as some sort of homeless object who should like what I have to give. But guess what, everybody? He's allowed to be lactose intolerant. I remember one time I tried to give a scone to a man, and he said, I'm diabetic. And it was a bit of a check for me personally, because I was like, oh, right, he's a real person. He has things that he likes and doesn't like. One time I tried to give a banana to a guy, and he was just like, no. And again, I felt that anger within me, but that is me not seeing his humanity. So I know you all think because I'm this social justice warrior at my temple, like everyone must be like me, right? No, this is Grand Rapids, so no. I get a ton of pushback. I get a lot of pushback because I'm asking people to do something that might be uncomfortable. Or I'm implying that a lack of action is in itself allowing racism to take place. So I've said this once earlier, I'll say it again. If you are complicit, if you are allowing injustice to happen around you, then you are part of the problem. And I already read that part. All right. Don't let people feel like they're strangers when they walk into this space. When they walk into this space, walk up to them. See a person of color especially and be like, okay, we're going to get this person to be a member. We're going to get this person to be part of this community, if only from an optics standpoint. But also think about how this person with such a different life experience could add to the wonderfulness that is Fountain Street Church. I always say that the white law firm that hires a person of color, that person is going to solve problems in a very different way than y'all would have. That person is going to bring a different set of skills, a world experience. You're going to find that you all will benefit because this person did not grow up exactly like you. And that's what happens to the community. So earlier we read a passage I sent to Reverend Christopher, Psalm 97, that light was sown for the righteous, radiance for the upright. So doing work for justice will bring light into your life, light that you would never feel otherwise. I used to work at a soup kitchen, and
when I would be done working in the soup kitchen and I'd be walking home, y'all, I was floating. I felt so good. I felt like, I have done good for this world. And I honestly feel like I was filled with light, the light of God. I have a theory. I like to think of God as like this ball of light. And every time a human baby is born, a teeny little bit of that light goes into this child. And therefore, when we look into the eyes of each other, we are seeing the light of God. And more than that, we're seeing a little bit of the light of ourselves. In just a few minutes, I want to offer you all a musical selection, a Jewish prayer based, it's the words, Or zarua la tzadik u'leishrei lev simcha, and that is the light is sown for the upright. And I'm going to pair it with a Negro spiritual. So singing spirituals in white spaces, it can possibly feel a little uncomfortable. Is this cultural appropriation? Here's the thing. If you state and honor that this music is from this specific culture, if you give it respect, and if I tell you all that this is the music written by enslaved Black Americans, it is the music that was written out of their blood, sweat, and tears. It is sacred music. This is not the music of white people. By me telling you all this, by you all acknowledging this, we are not appropriating it. We are giving it glory. We are carrying this music. We see it as sacred music. So this is Or Zarua La Tzadik, written by Walter Davidson, and it's paired with This Little Light of Mine, arranged by Margaret Bonds.
Or zarua la tzadik u'leishrei lev simcha. Or zarua la tzadik u'leishrei lev simcha. Or zarua la tzadik u'leishrei lev simcha. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. All through the night time, I'm gonna let it shine. All through the night time, I'm gonna it shine, let it shine. When I get to heaven, I'm gonna let it shine. When I get to heaven, I'm gonna let it shine. When I get to heaven, I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. Let it shine.
Thank you, Cantor David, for your words and your music. Friends, we're going to do things a little differently for our prayer and our offering this week. This is the part where I tell you there's nowhere else to be but here right now. And I don't always define what here is. Here is this cathedral of love and this temple of peace and this womb of contemplation. Here is at home or wherever you are. But here is also a liminal space, an in-between. Here is a space where we are embodying the fullness of our beings. And I think by now we've learned about ourselves that to be fully human is to recognize how many paradoxes and dichotomies and conflicting truths exist within each of us, and thusly the space we share. Every week I get up here and I don't think it can be any harder than the week before. Wasn't a war enough? Wasn't losing Mary Lou enough? Wasn't the barrage of injustice in our state legislatures and our federal legislature enough? Wasn't the loss of a black man in our own community at the hands of a GRPD officer enough? Wasn't losing Nessa enough? And then you come in here and the light just cuts into those windows. And how can you not feel joy, as guilty as you might feel about it? How can you sit here and hear these words from David, or the music from Cabildo, or the presence of one another, and not feel love? It's a paradox, it's a dichotomy, and we carry it. Holy Week is a paradox. Palm Sunday and Passion Sunday and Good Friday and Easter are a paradox. You might remember in the ancient stories in Palm Sunday going into Passion Sunday that there were literally two different parades going on, a paradox. You may remember that in those ancient stories, the same crowds that shouted, "Hosanna," like we heard our choir sing this morning, shouted, "Crucify him," by Good Friday. Life is hard. Life is beautiful. Life is messy. Life is hopeful. And each one of you, every one of you, is carrying that ancient truth within you. And so in a moment, we're going to take the offering. And it's also going to be an offering of ourselves to make space for that messiness. I want to lift up the loss of Nessa McCasey this morning, beloved member, beloved partner to Brad Miller, who is also a beloved part of this community. Brad asked me to hold space for her this week, and I thought I could read one of her poems. I thought I could mention her name, but on Thursday, not long before she passed, Brad asked me to play one of her favorite pieces for her before I left, and so I did. And as I held the loss of Nessa with the loss of Patrick and the experience his family's going through and the complications that each one of you brings with you, I thought for a moment that we'll have a moment this morning where we hold all of these things as real and true together. So I want to invite you into a different kind of prayer. I'm going to offer the same piece of music that was offered to Nessa as a way of honoring not only Nessa and Brad's loss or our loss, or Patrick's loss and his family's loss, but all of our loss and all of our joy, all of our hope and our fear and our uncertainty and our conviction. So I'm going to invite you into a moment of silence and then music, during which the offering will be received physically, but also metaphysically as our hearts join as one. Will you please join me in a space of prayer?
know I have been wounded, aching, heart full of pain. Still I rise, yes, still I rise. Just like a budding rose, my bloom is nourished by rain. Still I rise, yes, still I rise. Having time to wonder why, though fearful, I strive. Still I rise, yes, still I rise. My prayer and faith uphold me till my courage arrives. Still I rise. Still I rise, still I rise. With each day I succeed, I grow strong and believe that is all. Still I rise. As my heart grows heavy and my confidence dies, still I rise, yes, still I rise. Pure strength is in my tears and healing reigns in my cries. Still I rise, yes, still I rise. Plunge in depths of anguish, I determine to strive. Still I rise, yes, still I rise. My prayer and faith uphold me till my courage arrives. Still I rise, yes. Heart so heavy that it breaks. Beat out to see the firebird's wings. Rising sun is healing grace. Look at me, I'm getting stronger. I'm determined to survive. Though I get tired and I get weary, I won't give up. I'm still alive. Yes, still I rise as the eagle. Each day I succeed, I grow strong and believe that is all within my reach. I'm reaching for the skies, bolstered by courage, yet still I rise. Yeah, it's all within my reach. I'm reaching for the skies, higher and higher, yet still I rise. As it's all within my reach, I'm reaching for the skies. Yes, still I rise. 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 Yes, it's all within my reach. I'm reaching for the skies, bolstered by the courage, yet still I rise. As it's all within my reach, I'm reaching for the skies, higher and higher, yet still I rise. Yes, it's all within my reach. I'm reaching for the skies. Yes, still I rise.
Thank you, choir. Thank you, Austin and Margie and David, everyone, for bringing that together. We are out of time, and that is okay. It's been a beautiful week. I am told we have an announcement that comes to us from the house meetings. There she is, Jean Bailey, and anybody else involved with that, please come up.
We are Linda Jones, Meredith Bradley, and me, Jean Bailey. We are 3 of a dozen facilitators that are ready to do Together West Michigan house meetings. Today will be our second one that we have held. So what is Together West Michigan? There are 20 institutions that belong to this forming group, which is really kind of amazing, both secular and churches and nonprofits. And there are efforts all across this city and really across the nation doing very similar things. We're doing a listening campaign. It's a massive listening campaign so that we can hear people's stories, so that we can gather what issues are arising, so that in June we can announce what we're going to actually work on as a body. Will be quite a force to affect real change for our community. So the web of relationships within and between institutions, that's really where the power is. So think of this not as a focus group, but a group focused for an hour on personal pressures that people are feeling. This is not necessarily group therapy, although therapeutic things may happen. And what you would like to see different, and if you're willing to do something about it. So right after the service today, we're inviting you to come up front. We'll divide into small groups of 6 to 7 people and address the question, what pressures are you or someone you love facing? One just final piece of this. This is not just an opportunity to get to know ourselves, our community, our neighbors better. It's about exercising our democracy muscles, which are in real need. Here's how to do it. Here's the place to do it. It's also an antidote to the despair we're all feeling about losses, about injustices far away and in our own backyard. So this is what exercising our together muscles can look like. We invite you to join us. Thank you.
Thank you. And again, there is information in the Friday Flash about that. Okay, so coming up in this holy and sacred week are many ways in which you can embody holiness and sacredness and being a good neighbor, loving our neighbor. The first of which is on Tuesday. It's an invitation I send to you on behalf of the clergy here. We will be joining other parts of our community, other churches, other faith communities, and of course, members of the community in a march from Rosa Parks to City Hall. This is in direct response to this past week's police-involved shooting of Patrick Loyola, and we will be having a group of us walking over from the church. So I will be here. I think I live here, so I'll be here anyway. But if you want to meet here, we will walk over at 5:20 from the church building. You can use our lot, and we will just be together in this act of solidarity in Grand Rapids. Additionally, we will be having a Good Friday service. I've been promoting that for a little while. In the Christian stories, this is kind of one of the several climaxes often surrounding Jesus' death. And I know that in this community, we're not all jumping up and down to talk about Jesus or crack open our Bibles. However, there is rich beauty and truth in these stories, and we will be lifting them up on Friday evening. My working theme is comfort in suffering. Comfort and suffering. I sat with Brad and Nessa, and Amy Preston was actually with me on Thursday, and I believe it was the Threshold Choir. Is that the appropriate choir title? Was it Threshold? Some of the members were there singing to Nessa, and I knew immediately that that is one of the most powerful gifts we have is comfort and suffering. So we will have members of the Threshold Choir graciously with us. We will be singing these music pieces as well as a community and really looking at what it means to embody comfort in suffering. And then, of course, is Easter Sunday. We are looking forward to it for many reasons, not the least of which because we will begin congregational singing once again. And so I do hope you can join us on Easter Sunday. We will have Jonathan Took with us, the choir, Ed Clifford's quartet, and lots of congregational singing. So I am looking forward to celebrating in so many ways with you next Sunday on Easter Sunday. Friends, as we depart, I invite you to live deeply and fully in the paradox. Feel the dichotomy that is your being, Carry that little bit of light that David talked about and go in pursuit of seeing and affirming and loving the light in everyone else. And until we see you next week, take care of yourselves and know you are loved. Thanks for being here.
que final se acerca ya, la resistencia crece, descendiendo valores y dignidad, que al fin es ilegal, es hora de expresarse, porque lo único que hacen es crear discriminación o de miedo al inmigrante, progresismo, divisiones, expulsiones, no hay muralla que no podamos brincar.
Porque ahora es tiempo de demostrar, no me importa vivir en un mundo de igualdad. Tu opinión no importa y debes de hacerte oír. No te debes quieto, debes de protestar, actuar, luchar, gritar,
Escondiendo la cara tras la religión. Son tus actos cobardes que aumentan mi triste decepción. Hasta tus mentiras dejaron de ser novedad. El curso de la historia fluyó en la justicia más grande que nunca nos permitirá olvidar.
porque la indiferencia es la peor actitud. Hoy mi indignación me ha dado un gran deseo debe marginar ni maltratar.
Estarás consciente que la situación